Hello, everybody. It is 1:48 p.m. Central Time on the 24th of August, 2021. It's Tuesday here in the United States. Hope you're doing well. We are here, of course, on the Earthquake 3D live stream. It's about 97 degrees Fahrenheit outside right now. It's still summer here. And again, it's cooking hot out. I don't even know why I'm telling you that. I just want to tell you it's really hot outside. So we are here to talk about seismic events that are taking place. And I've got some breaking news that happened this morning. Kamchatka, up here in the Northwest Pacific, was struck by a significant sized quake, coming in at 6.1. USGS did the 5.9 thing, actually, last night. But they brought it back up to 6. Now, this is the spot where we were looking for a significant sized quake. But as we say here in the United States, an old saying, a day late and a dollar short. We were looking for a significant sized quake to strike here by yesterday. And yesterday at midnight, the warning expired. And then a few hours after, this earthquake hit. But I was looking for a significantly larger earthquake, about 100 times larger power-wise. Something in the upper 8 range. So this is way low, but it is spot on in the location for filling in the middle point, the open area. This whole area was open with no seismic in it, only volcanoes. And we can go right through the planet. As a matter of fact, I can just turn off the planet. We can look through it to the other side of the planet. We'll wait for the feed to refresh. See all the earthquakes on the other side of the planet just popped on there? Looking through the planet to the other side. That is the antipode, the opposite side of the planet, which is this. So what happened and why did I issue a warning for all the way up here based upon this earthquake and series of earthquakes down here? Well, antipode earthquakes happen. Antipode is just a fancy word to describe the opposite side of something, but the opposite side of the planet tends to get hit with significant sized earthquake activity within 3 days of a significant sized quake on the other side of the planet. So what happens is a big earthquake happens on one side of the planet. Within 3 days on the other side of the planet, there's another significant sized earthquake, according to professionals. And all the studies that we posted. Again, they studied 5,000 different 6.0 plus quakes and found that I think it was 67% of the time or 70% of the time, there's an earthquake on the opposite side of the planet of significant size within 3 days on the antipode. So when I issued my warning, it was based upon energy going back through the planet, coming back out up here. And what actually happened? Well, energy's still stuck down here. We got multiple additional 7 striking for the whole week, not aftershocks. It spread out all the way across the entire South Sandwich Island region, going from North-South Sandwich to South-South Sandwich. The distance here is about the entire country of New Zealand as a size reference. So it's not like it was just one location moving. The whole area, and I will show it to you on the USGS plate boundary map down here. All the way down at the south tip of Antarctica, southeast tip down here, south of South America. So moving down here, and it's stuck down here, did not fully come through. Instead, it kept breaking all the way around the edge. So from basically up here, all the way to down here. And that's still going on today, but some of the energy has now come through. But with multiple breaks and getting stuck there all week, looks like some of the energy was expended. Michael Volcano also showing up on the watch list, a little ash or whatever, viewers reporting that in on the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center. So I told you guys I was going to try to get to the bottom of how I got it wrong. Well, what happened? Energy stuck down here for an additional 12 hours. Then it started to come through. Hence our new earthquake all the way on the opposite side of the planet on the antipode right at the end of the warning. I told you guys so many times, I issue 7-day warnings for this, but we get to 7.5 days and the earthquake hits. That's the quake we're looking for, even if it's under on magnitude. So I'm spot on the location. We're under on the magnitude. Energy is obviously still trapped back down here and not escaping out through the planet. Now it goes back through and we see new deep earthquakes that begin to pop off when the energy comes back through. Well, look what started to happen up by Japan. All of a sudden, new deep earthquakes popped off on both sides of our letter D. Letter D stands for deep earthquakes. Multiple new deep 4s, 3 of them. Boom, 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 up the Izu Ridge. Do you see that? They're raised high off the globe for easy identification purposes. Okay, so 3 deep quakes there. Then, new deep quakes started to hammer off on our other letter D here at Fiji. Energy is coming back through the planet. It's starting to cycle over again. The feedback loop is going to be taking place. It's about 12 hours to a day behind what I would expect, which isn't much at all. Now, my viewers are telling me in the chat room over the past several days, but mainly over the last 2 days, that I need to start issuing 10-day and 14-day watches. Basically, if I issue warnings for 7 days for normal-size quakes, for massive quakes, I need to add a little more time. Now, I don't like doing that, but on, a day, what's the difference of like a day or two? So with a day or two, that's okay. I'm not going to be adding weeks or anything onto this. So we can take it from 7 days to 10 days. That's fine. We can start issuing warnings for 10 days on huge quakes only, because the energy seems to, on these big quakes, linger in an area before it transfers through. So it's lingering down here before it goes back through and comes out the other side. And it could just be that's because of the amount of movement that's taking place down there, that it takes a few days for it to go out of an area into the next area. And where do you go from here? Let's go over and take a look. Where do you go from here? Well, you can go over to the east, follow the fracture zone over to the east, but you see it's a stair-step fracture zone. It's locked and loaded. It's hard to move through. Meanwhile, the fluid edges of the plate go back to the other stair-step fracture zone, which, again, is not going to be easy to traverse back across an area that the flow, it's like a river flowing in one direction. You're going to try to go back against it. That's not going to happen. And the river, when it gets out here, hits a wall. Now, this is where it falls into a big waterfall pit and comes back out the other side. I know it sounds a little absurd that it comes back out the other side. Think of this like a feedback loop in an audio system where a microphone picks up the sound, puts it back through the system, pumps it back out, and then it follows the audio system back through again. Basically, that's what we're dealing with here. Okay, so energy did come through. There's the earthquake. It's way under magnitude-wise, spot-on location-wise, and a bunch of new deep quakes now accompany that. That's just where we're starting the update. California got hit, and Oklahoma got hit. So last week, going into this week, I had 2 separate overlapping warnings for California, which California flopped too, and I was really beating myself up about it yesterday, wasn't I? Well, here we are, California and Oklahoma. And now we've got 2 sets of 4s. Now, what's going on here? The 2 warnings, the first warning was for 4s to go across central and southern California, then to go over to Oklahoma. That was the first warning. Then the big earthquake hit in Haiti, down at St. Louis, Haiti. You want to talk about weird? Earthquake at St. Louis Catholic Church, right outside of D.C., rare quake. I cover it. A couple days later, earthquake strikes St. Louis, Haiti, down here. Okay, that's rare. And then Michael volcano erupts down here. I'm Michael from St. Louis, been fighting with the professionals for 10 years over earthquake forecasting and everything else. And all of a sudden, that starts happening? I don't know, it's getting weird. But I'm not saying it's like, Twilight Zone, what do you want to say? I mean, shrug your shoulders, whatever you want to say. I don't know how to explain it other than it's random chance. So now we see 4s going across the edge of the craton, going over right on the arrow, and I mean it is directly on the arrow. Now, I saw my viewers in chat yesterday talking about the swarm that was taking place in Oklahoma, but there wasn't a 4 there yet. There was just a series of smaller earthquakes. Let's go get the coordinates on this 4, put it in, show you what's there in Oklahoma, and then we'll go over to California and look everything up. So, what's going on with the forecast? 4s are now striking as expected. We are running just a few days behind, it looks like. I'm trying to get it down to 7 days. Mother Nature doesn't work on a 7-day time period. I do. Again, we do. We're trying to get it down within a week so I can warn you between a Monday and a Sunday. And you know when to watch throughout the week. Sometimes Mother Nature takes just a little bit longer, like the tides even, or maybe like weather. You might be expecting a hurricane to make a landfall. And it does, but it's a day and a half late, and the meteorologist looks like a jackass for telling you to be prepared a day before. But when it makes landfall exactly where they were expecting, even if it's a little bit less powerful, they're forecasting a Category 3 or 4, and a Category 1 comes in, hits the location directly. What do? They get on it like, oh, we got it right. Well, okay. So I'm not going to be that arrogant about it, but I am going to tell you, if I issue a warning for 4s to go over to Oklahoma, and now all of a sudden, a day later, the 4s hit, and it's been a minute since we've had any, look where it struck. These are all fracking operations, oil and gas. Every little pad here is a different oil and gas pumping op. Not just wastewater disposal, we're talking about oil and gas and pumping and all that good stuff. So here we are, and wastewater disposal will also release oil and gas. I mean, that's what it does. It breaks apart the shale. When you put the wastewater down in the ground, okay, anyway. Here we are. Look where we are. It's pretty obvious. We're right on the bend of the plate. Do you see the bend in the plate here? This is Oklahoma. This is Arkansas. And do you see these folds and bends in the plate? Now watch where they go. They go down and bend and go into Dallas, Texas. You see that? Now, it goes down this bend in the plate, and it goes down through Texas and makes a bend this way. It looks like a river almost, doesn't it? That's a 1,000-foot bulge, or rise, that rises 1,000 feet to up here from down here. So this is a 1,000-foot bulge that goes and makes a U-shaped bend through Texas, through Big Bend, of all places, a bend, and then it goes back up into New Mexico, Colorado, and this is a perfect match for the edge of the craton. See the rusty brownish color versus the purple? And do you see where it goes? It goes down through Colorado, down through New Mexico, makes a U-shaped bend. It goes right up into Oklahoma, doesn't it? Then it goes over to the east and up the East Coast, doesn't it? Well, hey, hold on. That's the way the earthquakes are going. And we tend to get the same sized earthquakes out on the West Coast that we do in the Midwest. So what struck on the West Coast? How about just a few hours earlier, a 4-point something, almost the exact same size, struck right down at the California border with Mexico, Westmoreland, California. Now, I'm going to show you what's here. There's no oil pumping operations here, but there's something else here that you got to see. So we're going from a drill point in Oklahoma that got a 4, and we're going just a few hours earlier now over to the West Coast to a 4. And look where it struck. Do you see this? Do you see that triangle right there? That's from the Smithsonian. And it's the place mark for a volcano called Salton Sea. Mother Nature has punched up through the plate here, creating a weak point. But guess what humans did? See these? These are geothermal turbines. You see the steam coming out the top of them? Now you can follow the pipelines over to places down the road, even a few miles down the road, and they have drill points that they've drilled down a few hundred to a few thousand feet to get the heat, to make the steam, to turn the turbines, to provide the power. So they've drilled into this volcano. Now, why does that matter? Well, a 4 striking at a drill point in Southern California. Then a few hours later, another 4 strikes over to the east on the edge of the craton at a drill point at an oil pumping operation. Now, in between them, you'll see a stack of quakes here in West Texas. Let's go take a look in West Texas. See what's there. Now, again, most people are already going to know what's in Texas, or let's get the coordinates from the USGS on this. It's better to get it from the USGS. They have finer coordinates down to 100th decimal point. It'll just take us in just a little bit more closely. The Europeans and USGS are using the same coordinates. It's, again, just USGS has one more decimal point for further refinement. There it is. There's the earthquake epicenter, and right next to it, you're going to see pads. Do you see the pads? Do you see the pipelines? And do you see the pumps and jacks? Now, you see the pond. The pond is for collecting water. They use those ponds to collect water, fresh water, rainwater, and then they'll mix it with toxic chemicals in the tanks, and then pump that crap down in the ground to break apart the shale. Wastewater disposal leave the nasties down in the ground, too, and take out the oil and gas, which comes up through the water, and they create pressure and get that out of there. Now, all the pipelines connect to compressor stations or condensing stations that put that into a pipeline. Now, look how many there are. These aren't houses. Every one of these is an oil pad, oil and gas. And this is nothing, actually. It looks like a lot because it is. I mean, what do you think? A few thousand are right there? That's nothing. Look right next to it. There's just a few thousand just in this one patch. And then you find out next to this is nothing. We did on whole counties like that. Look at it. Please. Oh, it's not going to weaken the plate. Dirt. Sorry, I hate to add the sound effect of a dir, but that's what we're dealing with, is mega dir. We're talking about Southern California getting a 4 and a swarm outbreak, a 4 at a drill point at a volcano, geothermal. And then over on the edge of the craton, we get a swarm outbreak in Texas at drill points. And we get a 4 and swarm over at the drill points in Oklahoma. All are on the edge of the craton. Either the deformed edge, the coastal plain, or going into the actual Craton Edge itself in the Midwest. Once we get over to the New Madrid seismic zone, it takes a step down. So it's being expended somewhat, or not expended, but it's being revealed here at the pumping operations as the energy is flowing across. It does take a step down, usually, by the time it gets to the East Coast, a little bit of absorption across the plate. So a 4 can go down to a 3, for instance, up here in the Northeast. Where are we going to get hit? Well, our previous earthquakes tell us where to look. We can look between our current sets of earthquakes. And guess where that takes us? I mean, come on, guys. This is starting to get a little weird now, honestly. So we're back down here in the middle, right next to Maryland. We've got Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, right here. Now, the little diamond shape right in the center of the screen, right here, that's D.C. And an earthquake struck here already this week. I had warned Virginia right here, and an earthquake struck right here. So I warned here, and, well, actually, I warned right here in central Virginia. And then a rare quake hits, and it hits right outside of D.C. in Maryland, and we look it up, and it's below the parking lot of St. Louis Catholic Church in Maryland. I was like, St. Louis, what? Well, now we're back here again, and this is the next spot to watch again, this time for a 3 that you'll likely feel. It won't be just a mystery boom or rumble they try to pass off as a sonic boom or something. So one more time, let's recap. The earthquake we were looking for up here at Kamchatka has struck. The location, you can check it off the list. But power-wise, magnitude-wise, we're still stuck down here and still breaking apart and still moving with multiple 7s. I wouldn't be surprised if, until it carries through, that we would see this to carry on and see another 7 strike down here. Enough that it would really get your attention. Even the biggest skeptic or person who's not paying attention would see that and be like, wow, look how many 7s there are. And the USGS would be like, oh, yes, aftershocks, yes. No, they're continual shocks as new energy is flowing in. And how is energy flowing in? Let me show you. Energy is flowing in from over here, where all of our deep quakes are. Look at the spacing on our quakes coming out of Japan. We'll talk about that in a moment, too. But those 4 quakes and how they're somewhat perfectly spaced across that uneven plate boundary. But deep earthquakes coming up over here, and energy transfers across the plate straight to the fracture zone. Fracture zone takes a stair step one way. It's a one-way street pretty much. And it goes down. Once it gets over here, smooth sailing right over to the edge. You see how smooth that is in comparison to the fractures. So plate boundary and plate boundary fracture zone. 2 different things, right? Now on the north side, same thing's going on. We got the same sized earthquake up here on the north side, 7.2. So we get 7.1, 7.2 down here, and we get 7.1, 7.2 up here at Haiti. Now since then, the flow across the Caribbean, nothing has been reported out here out to the east. Let me show that to you. At our X's. It's getting weird that they're not reporting anything out here. Almost deliberate. Now looking back across, we have new activity on the coast of Guatemala. Now this leads me into having to go check the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center. So let's go check a look at the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center. Reventador in Ecuador, Sanjay in Ecuador, 2 side by side, South America. Seismopochnoi up in the Aleutians, and Shivalush side by side, up by Kamchatka where the new 6 just hit. Suwanese-Ijima in South Japan, regular eruptor on the list now. And Nevado de Chilean down in Chile, sporadic puffs. That's down in South America as well. Ibu in Indonesia, Dukono in Indonesia, 2 side by side. Seems like the 2 side by side things going on all the way around the whole plate right now, except for in Central America. Where's Popocatépetl? I don't see anything in Mexico. That's odd, isn't it? Going into yesterday, do they have anything yesterday? Chirincoton up in the Carolina. Guys, hold on. No eruptions reported at Popocatépetl in Mexico? A regular eruptor on the list? Now look at the earthquakes all the way around it. Pretty obvious. There's something going on. Let's go look at the plate boundary and just see what's going on there. Okay, here's the plate boundary. Down to the south, the red line going across Mexico. So we have a line of quakes going right down through here. And right where the plate boundary meets and goes over to the east, Guatemala. Now, Fuego was erupting here. It's not on the list right now. Also, Pacaya. And what was the other one? Santa Guido. So 3 volcanoes were erupting here, and now none. Instead, we get a new quake right where the 2 plate boundaries meet, over to the east. Big earthquake struck here. We're expecting the flow to go out this way. So what's going on? The wave that caused the earthquake? There's waves that cause earthquakes. Not waves that are caused by earthquakes, but waves that cause earthquakes that come up from the core of the earth and spread out. And the wave that caused this is still bouncing around in here. I can show you an example of what I think is going on. The deep earthquakes first, of course. So the deep earthquakes hammering in on the underside of the plate all the way on the West Pacific, thousands of miles to the west. But then when that hammering action takes place down below the plates, it comes up through the plate. No doubt, right? You get a hammer like that coming in on the underside of the plate, and where's it going to go? It's going to go up into the plate, and then there's breaks in the plate. These red lines, the cracks between the plates. And the energy flows out and around, following that like a wave tank. And then here's what I think is happening. In the wave tank, imagine this first wave like a deep earthquake striking. Just one. And it sends out a ripple or a wave. Now, again, that first deep earthquake is down below the plates. It's not rock rubbing against rock. There's something going on down in the magma, down below. But the wave comes out, and it goes down those red lines, the plate boundaries, and it reflects off and comes back. And when it reflects off and comes back, it starts to increase the power of the wave. It's pumping more energy back into itself, basically. It's called a standing wave. And notice how the waves become the same size. The energy distributes out across the tank as the wave goes back into and goes to the other end, and the wave height increases. It doesn't become chaotic like a swimming pool full of waves. This is more organized. The energy goes back into itself, and the wave gets bigger and bigger, and more powerful and more powerful. Now the spacing. This is important. The spacing. Let's get back over and look at the USGS map. The spacing. The standing wave spacing. That they're all about the same size quakes going across the wave tank, but the wave tank's somewhat unevenly shaped. It's broken. Again, that's a plate boundary. It's not a rectangle tank in the laboratory, but the same thing's happening. The spread of the same size quakes across a huge distance. And that's here in Japan, right? Well, look over here. Boom, boom, and then boom over on the east side. Now, what was right in the middle? The biggest earthquake in years. So think of it like this. In the middle, the wave forms and combines on itself. And the middle point where the waves combine, where one wave goes into the next, that middle point is an open valley. You see that? But look what happens. So the peak of the next wave comes in and fills in the valley of the previous wave, or the trough of the previous wave. In other words, the middle point's filled in between the waves by the next wave. And so then we get, again, now here in the middle, right here is where our Big 8 was, at St. Louis, Haiti. The St. Louis thing again, man, freaking me out, because I'm from St. Louis. But that's just the principle of the standing wave. So the wave's trapped here. It's been bouncing around for a week. There's been no new eruptions now. So the volcanoes have been cut off for some reason. I would think they'll probably come back. There'll probably be a new, larger blast. The more we're cut off volcanically through here, while there should be breaks and should be a release, something's cut off the flow, the pressure to the volcanoes. But if there's cut off flow to the volcanoes, seismically speaking, then there's going to be a new break here. So where would the new break happen in this region? Well, I'm not going to issue a forecast. I still flopped from this past week. But I look between our current sets of earthquakes, so that kind of tells us where to watch. We would watch here right in the Cayman Islands. Right there. Now, guess what's right there? Let me show you. This. So here's the Cayman Islands, this little section of islands, and look what's there. The only jagged stair-step fracture zone on the whole Caribbean, and that's where it's locked and loaded right now. So the wave's stuck in here. We're looking for it to go out over to the east, to go out to the fracture zone, drop off at our letter X's, and go back through the planet, come back out over here with new deep earthquakes on the antipode. Speaking of same-sized earthquakes across huge distances, this is 48 hours worth of quakes right here, and you should be able to see it, at least coming out of Indonesia, going up across a rare earthquake in the Bay of Bengal over in eastern India, and then going across the plate boundary up and around Myanmar, going up to next to Nepal or North India, and then up into Afghanistan. But look at the magnitudes. They're all about the same size. And I mean quite literally. 4.7, 4.6, 4.7, 4.6, 4.7, 4.9, 4.6, 4.9. And we're looking at everything 2.0 and greater. It goes back around to 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, all the way back up and around this way. Now, let's compare the earthquakes here that are all the same size. 4.7 all the way up to Taiwan, and a 4.6 all the way up here to Japan, or Izu Ridge. But just follow them back around, and we go up into Asia. Let's go to the USGS map. Wait, do you see this? It's a perfect match. Here, plate boundary, going up and around it. There's one oddball quake out the Bay of Bengal. But I would say that Bay of Bengal quake is really close to the plate boundary, and it's filling in the middle point. It's trying to go around the bend of the plate. We got a big push coming across. So you can imagine if this is like a flowing river and a big flood is coming in, think of this like a little side pool where eddying of the water would take place. You know what eddying is? It's where the water spins and rotates on itself and can create suction down into the water or upwelling water, okay? Now, that's in the water in a river where it gets caught into a little side bank and starts to twirl and spin. I would think the same thing's happening, seismically speaking, as this wave is trying to travel out and go around the bend of the plate. This standing wave is dropping off the same sized quakes all the way along it. Going from here, up and around the bend of the plate. Look at the steep curve of the bend of the plate in Myanmar. Do you notice anything missing there? It would be the one spot where we need an earthquake filled in. And look at this one. Conversely, on the other side of it. This shape here and this shape here. Do you see this? You have to be able to look and see the pattern. And this is not pareidolia. We're not looking for faces or anything in rocks. This is, again, it's the same shape, the same size. It's like a yin-yang, where the plate boundary is right in the middle. Do you see this? So this spot is missing a quake, and this spot gets one. It's a flow going across. It's just going across India instead of up through Myanmar. But the other side's going to get hit, guys. It's like a two-arm scale. It's not going to be avoided. It's just trying to take a path of least resistance, which is, of course, to the west. Why is it a path of least resistance to the west? Well, it's the way out from the whole Pacific over to the west towards Europe. Take a look at it this way. Indo-Australian plate. And the Indo-Australian plate is moving on the north side of it, and it's escaping. The energy is going out towards the Middle East right now. Same time it's escaping out towards the Middle East with 4 sets of quakes. Look what's going on towards Japan. The same size. Going up in a standing wave up to Japan at the plate boundary where it meets into Tokyo, where it gets locked. Again, that's a block point. So think of this like the wave tank, and think of this like a wave tank. And they're connected between where we're getting hammering down below with all these deep earthquakes. Can you believe it? Professionals missed all this, man. It took a YouTuber like me, some anal retentive freak, to come out and like notice patterns. Okay, let's go on. Yeah, that's a positive way to refer to myself, isn't it? Okay, over to the west, Iran. Well, if you take these two quakes, add them together, equals 4.5 to 4.6. We have 2 4s plus a bunch of 3s. So again, we're right about the same size. When you take these quakes and add them together on both sides of Iran, north side and south side. Why does that matter? It's the same size that's coming in, 4.6 to 4.7, and then we get about a 4.5 to 4.6. Just a little loss of energy going over into Iran. Now, check it out. Both sides of Iran here, south side of Iran and north side of Iran. Now, north side of Iran, USGS doesn't have anything there. But look what we have. We have an arrow there. USGS has the plate boundary going through South Iran, right? The red line. But let's go over and show you what's on actual Google Earth, on the actual topography. This is important. You should understand that the USGS plate boundary map is not complete, in my opinion. So over here to Iran we go. Let's bring it back due north. Again, USGS has the plate boundary going right down through here. But look what the mountains do. Do you see how we're coming out of Afghanistan, out of the Hindu Kush mountains, and we're going across Afghanistan this way on the north side? It looks like a flowing river, doesn't it? These are mountain ranges. bent and twisted like molasses over a long period of time. But it's breaking around the center of the plate like a rock in a river. So USGS has this down on the south side, the plate boundary, but the earthquakes go on both sides. They'll follow both sides of this. And it's about the same size on both sides. It's trying to equally distribute out across both sides of the plate. Now, it's flowing, so it's going to be going over here. And right now, this is quiet. There's nothing there. Let's go show you on the plate boundary map what's there. Where they both come back together is right here in eastern Turkey, where the plate boundaries take a dead end on the USGS map. They're all connected. But here is going to be the next spot that gets hit. I'm not issuing a forecast. I flop the forecast this week. When I flop a forecast, I don't issue a new forecast till I figure out what's going on. And to me, energy is trapped all the way back down on the other side of the Pacific. We're waiting for this flow to take place. It's taking place now. You can see it. It's going out through the west. Stepping stone path of quakes. Yeah, that's another way to look at it. Like a stepping stone path, where you would equally space stones across an uneven pathway. Right? You understand that concept. The same thing is taking place here, and the flow is going in a certain direction. Out and away. Out and away! It's so obvious. The flow, which way does it go? Oh, well, it just goes out and away from where you're pushing. Just like pushing on anything. When you push on something, you push on it hard enough, guess what? It'll go out and away from you. And in this case, the push is coming up from underneath, so it spreads up, out, and away. And then it follows the cracks that are already there, which are the red lines, the plate boundaries. But I already mentioned USGS doesn't have the red lines everywhere, but they should. On the north side of Iran, for instance, these are the craton edges, like the craton in the United States. So energy is following not just the plate boundaries, it's following the plate boundaries and craton edges. And that means path of least resistance. It means we can plot a trajectory if we know the plate boundaries and craton edges, and we know where the push is coming from, and we know which way it's trying to go to. If you know where something's coming from generally, and you know where it's going to, and you know the path generally that it's going to take, you can plot a trajectory and arrival time for it. And then you have to understand what's moving. What is transferring across areas? It's not earthquakes that are causing other earthquakes going across areas. It's a wave that inundates the whole area first. Invisible, people can't see it. This might even be what agitates animals and humans before a big quake hits. A very low frequency, a vibration of some kind. But as it saturates the area, then the earthquakes break off along the way. So it's not one earthquake causing the other. It's that this freaking wave, pardon my language, this wave is causing the quakes. And I get excited. I do. I freaking, I get excited because it was a big discovery, still is, that there's something else that causes earthquakes. And professionals, they mistook everything I was saying over the last 10 years. They thought I was saying one quake was causing another. They just never watched my stuff, I guess. Right? They just assumed I was saying. And when people assume, they make an ass out of themselves. They make an ass out of themselves between you and me, assume. But in seriousness now, that they thought I was saying that, like for instance, that this 4 in Southern California at the volcano at the geothermal pumping operations was somehow causing this 4 over in Oklahoma. And I know that's what they thought because the top geophysics medal winner for the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, a professor from the University of Washington, said that back to me as a reason for why it can't happen. He was denying that there's a transfer of earthquakes across the plate, and he said it's impossible that one earthquake causes the other. Dutch. The theory or the equations of elasticity, and he posted them like I'm supposed to know how to do expert math, being a high school grad. But he posted them, and I had to immediately respond and correct a professor and tell him, you've completely misunderstood what I'm saying. I'm not saying one earthquake causes the other. I'm saying that all these earthquakes are caused by an inundating force that's spreading across the mass or the plate, and then it drops off, it breaks across the way as it spreads. And so it's not one quake causing the other. It's that all these quakes are being caused by something else, dude. And again, it was like, I could imagine the moment that he had when he read that and said, oh my God, I've gone out on a limb. And denying it is foolish. A 4 struck over in California and a 4 struck in Oklahoma. And it happens somewhat regularly. Enough so that it's happened for 10 years and we've been forecasting based upon it. And so you can't say it's chance when it happens over and over. Chance ceases to be chance when it happens all the time, or a lot of the times. It becomes a likely occurrence then. And if it's a likely occurrence, it could be forecast. Now, final point on this. Southern California, Central California. Well, we're a day late. We're a day late and dollar short across the board, guys. Here in the U.S., that ain't good enough. So I'm going to have to tell you, that is not good enough. Ain't isn't a word. It is here in Missouri, where I live in the central United States, but kids, don't be like me in language. That being said, we are watching now. I'm watching real close. I'm a day late. The earthquakes start to strike. They're a little bit less than expected, or a lot, I guess. 6 supposed to upper 8. Again, 100-fold less. We're 100-fold less, which means there's still 100-fold power trapped down here at the South Sandwich Islands. Now, for California, 4s are striking instead of 6s. So sound familiar? It's 100-fold less power. Just like it's 100-fold less power down here, we are 100-fold less power coming back up and around. But look what happened. What were we looking for to happen? We were looking for energy to come back up and around. And what happened in the past 2 to 3 days? Do you see it? We're looking at everything 3.8 and greater. Let's look at 3.0 and greater. You should really be able to see it then. It goes right up to Central California, right to our warned location, exactly to it. I'd warned the California-Nevada border at Long Valley, going from Monterey Bay to Long Valley, down to Ridgecrest, back over to the coast. This square right in here. And that's exactly where the energy went to on the 3.0 range. Then it went over to the east, following the Craton. 4s, though. So we're a lot under coming out of Haiti, which now, again, I've issued now, I guess technically I have issued a forecast for the Cayman Islands to get the earthquake we were expecting in California, basically. So it's basically same region. Let me show you how it's the same region. We'll go back over to the plate boundary. That from here down over and across to here. It's the southern edge of Laurentia. This is the Laurentian plate, North America. And it goes all the way down to Mexico and over through the Caribbean. It also goes all the way out to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and up to the North Pole. But here we are, and again, it's connected. So if I'm looking for a quake here and I have to adjust it down to here, it's because the energy is not flowing, backflowing. The energy is not backflowing. Look which way all of our arrows point. The big energy is not backflowing. We're getting 4s going back up to the north so far. But the big energy we would expect, again, if I'm looking for an upper 6 to come right up here and strike right here, Central California, and it doesn't, and instead 3s come up the back way, and 3s and 4s come up the backside, it's still stuck here. That standing wave is still bouncing around in here. And we're getting the same size quakes, bounced off all the way along the way. And I'm not joking, they are the same size quakes. Look, so 4.5, 4.6, 4.4, 4.5, and then another 4.4. Then once we get into the United States, we get all the way back up to the tail end. Takes a little bit of a step down to 4s. But the main body of the wave trapped in the middle, and then the biggest earthquake of the bunch here, a 5.4, which is right next to, one more time, that new big quake out of the whole bunch. So we've got a big line of 4s all the way around, right in the middle, 5, the combined total of all the waves. Think of it like this. The combined total of all these waves in the tank, and in the middle, new 5 pops off. So you're like 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and then boom, new 5 pops in the middle, in between the waves. And that is what we're dealing with. So did I flop? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, baby, we flopped. And then the next day, here I am talking about the location that we were looking for, getting a noteworthy size quake. How many times is that going to happen? I'm telling you, that starts to weird me out a little bit too. So when it comes to forecasting now, when I flop, I try to figure out where I got it wrong. I won't go forward with new forecasts until I correct what went wrong, right? I can't issue new forecasts going forward for the next week if I don't know where I got it wrong last week. And where did I get it wrong? Here. This is the spot where it really is bothering me. We are stuck down here still, which means the potential. It could go larger. I mean, I'm talking about additional 7s down here. But if I'm looking for a 9 on the opposite side of the planet and it strikes down here, we're talking about an Atlantic-wide tsunami instead of a Pacific-wide tsunami. And an Atlantic-wide tsunami would be a big deal. Indian Ocean, Australia, South America's east coast, even the east coast of the United States, even the western coast of Europe. If we get an Atlantic-wide tsunami, that, first of all, it'd be the first one we've had in, as far as I know, in recorded history, or at least in the last 50 years. We haven't had many Atlantic tsunamis, none coming in on the east coast of the United States or to Europe or Africa. So that's a change. If that happens, I'm not issuing a forecast for it. I'm watching myself. That's different. When I'm watching something myself, I'll talk about it. I'll be in chat. We'll hash over what possibilities are, but I'm not making a video issuing warnings to the people in the area yet. Okay? And again, there's not that many people down here. But if an Atlantic-wide tsunami were to happen, we'd have to warn everybody on the east coast of the United States and Europe. That's why I'm worried. Because when I strike out, or strike, and don't get the expected earthquake in the expected location all the way over here, and we're looking back down here as the spot, we're in uncharted waters, where there aren't any previous examples I have of mega quakes striking down here. Yeah, we've gotten 7s, but I'm talking about the kind that generate major tsunamis, 8s and 9s. So the new deep quakes on the opposite side of the planet are giving me hope, actually, that something's coming through the planet, going from Japan back down to Fiji. And normally I wouldn't want to see deep earthquakes at all, because that means new seismic activity where the deep earthquakes are. But that would also mean energy's coming through, and that would be good. So it's like, look, we're between a rock and a hard place. No pun intended. Again, we have two bad choices to make here. So one bad choice is for it to stay down here and break with a big quake. The other is for it to come through with a bunch of new deep quakes and a big quake up here. The energy's not going to escape out. Where's it going to go? We're in a closed planet. The core of the Earth is vibrating like a bass drum, generating this very low frequency that's coming up. And that means the core of the Earth is not a solid ball of metal or magma, molten. It is vaporized metals. Plasma torch, electrically charged and powered from the sun. Charged particles coming into the magnetic field lines of the Earth and going down to the core. And the core rotating. But it's oscillating. It's electrical. Electricity oscillates, rotates, but then it's physically rotating. So it's oscillating electrically, and then it's physically rotating. I call that hyper-oscillation, by the way. But hyper-oscillation, or multiple rotations, onto a plasma. And it's a hot plasma, like a plasma torch, only powered by Mother Nature and the sun, hot enough to vaporize miles across of iron, nickel, uranium, the heaviest elements that sink down to the core of the Earth through the magma, the heaviest elements drawn to the core, and then they get vaporized like it's a plasma globe that you would put your hands on and touch to glass on the outside and watch the tendrils come out and touch your fingers very prettily through the neon gas. We're talking about gas that's made of vaporized iron. I don't even know what the temperature would be to get that, but whatever it is, that would be nickel and iron vaporized. Now that reflects like a solid. So if scientists are like looking down to the core of the Earth using seismic waves to figure out if it's solid or not, and they get a reflection, they didn't know until recently that plasma reflects shock waves. Seismic waves too. You know, that gets me into the earthquake reflection device that I invented, and that gets into what Boeing invented. Boeing invented it using electric arcs in the air like lightning. It reflects physical shock waves from explosions. And if it reflects a physical shock wave from an explosion, it'll reflect a seismic wave in the ground. But anyway, Boeing patented it to put onto Humvees and buildings to protect them from the incoming blast from improvised explosive devices, like on the sides of roads and bombs. Now, it doesn't stop the physical flying shrapnel through the air, but it stops the shock wave from blowing over the Humvee, and that reflects, again, plasma reflecting a shock wave. So if that's the case with a Humvee on the surface of the Earth in the air, what do you think's happening with plasma down in the core of the Earth and seismic waves? Same thing. It's reflecting the seismic waves back like it's a solid. So professionals, of course, assumed, face palm on this assuming thing, they assumed it was solid. Because they didn't know. Now you try telling them, and they'd come up with all these elaborate hocus-pocus hogwash explanations for it. Meanwhile, you've got earthquakes hammering up on the underside of the plate. You have an electromagnetic discharge coming out from the rotating core of the Earth, and they're denying that it's rotating. It's insane. To maintain what they said previously, they got to deny stuff like that there's something. Hey, I got something for you. You know why they say the core of the Earth is melted? They say weight, pressure. They say weight melts things. And if you want to melt something, all you have to do is put a bunch of weight on top of it. You can turn it molten. All you have to do is put enough weight on top of it. So if I want to melt this rock, what I need to do is get 1 trillion pounds and put it on top of the rock, and the rock will melt. No! Actually, there's something inside the core of the Earth that's hot enough to melt any element. Something hotter than the elements. Something that's electrically charged, maybe? That's absorbing power from the sun? I know. I'm not here to debunk your whole science book at once, but I am here to tell you something's wrong. Now, I'm going to say this is a video. We will get it out over to the world. You guys, please share it. I'm going to go put it on YouTube. All it's doing is giving people an update on where I got it wrong and how we're running a day late. Now, that means we're running a day late. That means today, tomorrow, we're watching for large earthquake activity to possibly develop either down at the South Sandwich or coming through the planet to the other side where Kamchatka is. So far, so good. We are 100-fold under what I was expecting. I was looking for a mega quake. We get a large one. That's good. I mean, it's good for you guys and it's bad for my forecasting. And I got to figure out why the energy got stuck. Why did it get stuck down at South Sandwich? It's like Sherlock Holmes. I may never get an answer. But it is stuck down at South Sandwich. You can see them. The earthquake's rotating by on the screen at the bottom of the screen right now. The big rings still going down there. I don't call those aftershocks when they spread out 1,000 miles. When you have a 1,000-mile area that's now moving at the South Sandwich Islands, I don't call those aftershocks. I would call aftershock at the spot or, within 10, 50, even 50 miles, maybe even 100 miles of the earthquake itself that I would think, oh, okay, those are aftershocks. But when you have the whole South Sandwich moving, those are other earthquakes from other pressure coming in that's stuck there and floating around trying to get out, but it can't. But why can't it? I'll never get an answer on that until I might need a research institute, 1,000 scientists to come help me. We might be able to figure it out. But right now I'm a one-man operation. Well, you know what? I'm a one-man operation sitting on a beautiful lake. Look at that. Hey, now, everybody listening, will you please listen? Hello, please listen. I have a fundraiser going for solar power for my house and a battery bank and an outside generator to power the house too. If you have a problem with that, I'm just going to have to tell you to get lost. What do you want me to say? I can't take you serious. But for everybody else who's a viewer of mine, if you want to support my operation, you can help offset some of the cost on that. And so far, we're at about 10% of what I think the cost is going to be. My viewers have so far given over $3,100 since yesterday. Thank you to everybody who's given. And the links are over on Facebook, on Twitter, on my YouTube community page, and down below this video in the description. Again, if you got a problem with me raising money for solar to get off the grid and you want me to do it myself, I can't. Can't afford it. Gonna have to work for years to try and get it. No, my viewers can help me offset some of the cost since I'm doing it for them. And you guys all get something from it from me being on. I've been shut off power-wise 30 or more times in just the past few years. 30. My wife is a witness. Something's up with us, whether we go wherever we live, they're hitting it. So there is a they, by the way. If you want to debate that, I'd be happy to debate you on it. I've got pictures, too, of them. Flying over and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, conspiracy, huh? Okay. 2:30, if there is such a thing as a conspiracy, it's happening to me. All right, 2:37 p.m. Central Time on the 24th of August, 2021. It's very much appreciated if you help give to the system that I'm going to be using to stay off the grid. Secondly, you need to have an earthquake plan. I should have even said that first. Firstly, you should have an earthquake plan, but I always say this at the end of my updates. Nobody ever listens. For crying out loud, nobody ever listens. What am I even telling you for? No, I'm serious. You need to have an earthquake plan. It just means take shelter underneath a table or a desk. You don't have to run around your house and pretend an earthquake's happening and do earthquake drills like the USGS does. No. You can just look around your house and figure out a table or desk you're going to go to. But you got to remember to go there. Don't run around your house screaming earthquake. Most likely the people in your house already know it's happening, by the way. Now, emergency kits. I don't sell any of that crap. I don't really have any of it on stock myself. I found that out when I got stung by a bunch of bees, or hornets, yellow jackets, and didn't have any Benadryl in my bug out bag. Had to up the medicines in my bug out bag. Now my bug out bag has flashlight and batteries and a change of clothes and a set of shoes and debit card and all that stuff, sanitation and some first aid. But it didn't have the whole anaphylactic shock thing covered. Oh, man, there's always going to be something you need to add into your emergency kit, guys. So, again, I don't even know where to tell you to start with that other than a backpack or bag, change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries, identification. Food and water, too. You probably would want some of that for the first couple days. But with the food, not the meals ready to eat, not the steaks pre-packaged, not the long-term buckets. Something that you can have in your backpack. Fruit roll-ups, granola bars, high energy. High protein, high energy, high sugar, and you want that for the first day or two. And then you'll have your long-term stuff to get you through on more carbohydrates and fruits and vegetables and those sorts of things. All right, so just advice. I'm not trying to boss you around or anything. Just please think about doing it. I always remind people, someday someone will listen, one life will be saved, and all this stuff at the end of my videos will be worth it. 50 hours worth of me telling you to be prepared at the end of videos, and one person might live. Their life is saved. Job done. Dude. All right. It is awesome. You guys are great. I will be back. And again, look out for this over on YouTube in just a few minutes. Peace out.